Okay, now we're coming into the home stretch now. Next section we're going to go over is going to be 2.20, 2.20 accident procedures. They got some trick questions with this accident procedure stuff, and you may only see one question, but it's going to be a trick question. So, an accident procedure. You're the first one on the scene. You come around the corner and you see an accident. You're the very first one. So, the first thing you want to do is protect the scene. How do you protect the scene? You can protect it with your vehicle. Stop far enough back, put your four ways on. If you have a CB, start telling other people before you stop and protect the scene, even if it's with your vehicle. The first thing you do at an accident scene is to keep another accident from happening in the same spot. To protect the accident scene, if your vehicle is involved in the accident, try to get it to the side of the road. This will help prevent another accident and allow traffic to move. So protect the scene, right? Protect the area. If you're stopping to help, park away from the accident. The area immediately around the accident will be needed for emergency vehicles. So we want to protect the area. Put on your flashers. Set out reflective triangles to warn other traffic, to make sure other drivers can see them in time to avoid the accident. We don't want to create another accident in an accident that's already happened. And so in the other section we was talking about visibility and the things we see in Florida and other places sometimes where you have 100-car pileup and because nobody protected the scene, 100 people gets involved in them. It's been a while since I've seen one of those, but you can go back on YouTube and see some of that. So that's how you protect the area. Protect it with your vehicle, get it off the road, put your four ways on, put your flashers on. That's protecting the area. The second thing you're going to do is notify the authorities. So notify the authorities. We all have cell phones nowadays. 911. You need to know where you're at, what highway you're on, where's your location. Mile marker 22, Interstate 94, westbound, North Dakota. That's an area. Know where you're at. After that, you got to care for the injured. Now you're a first responder. You don't go do anything that's going to cause more damage. Do things that are in your wheelhouse. It is in your best interest to take some first aid CPR classes, wound care, things like that. It really will help. It's not required, but good gosh, if you're going to be a professional driver, you really should take one. There are a lot of free classes you can take. It's first aid. So if a qualified person is at the accident and helping the injured, stay out of the way unless they ask you to help, right? Otherwise, do the best you can to help any injured parties. Here are some simple steps to follow in giving assistance. Don't move a severely injured person. There are going to be some trick questions around this one. Don't move a severely injured person unless the danger of fire or passing traffic makes it necessary. So I'm not going to move an injured person. I'm not a medical professional. You're not maybe you are. I'm not a medical professional. So I'm not going to try to move them, causing more injury. Unless, let's say, there's a nearby fire, and if I don't move them, they're going to be burned up. All right, so, okay, we're going to move them then. Or if they're in the lane of traffic, traffic's coming fast, 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 and if you don't move them, they're going to get ran over. Or you're going to prevent that. So those are the two situations to where you would actually move them. But other than that, don't move them. Stop heavy bleeding by applying direct pressure to the wound. Again, take those first aid classes. Apply steady pressure to the wound. Hold it with clean cloth, clean bandages, whatever you can to help slow or stop the bleeding. Keep the injured person warm. So there's a lot of questions. They're going to throw trick questions in here on you. And I'm going to try to give you a visual of this, okay? Don't ever move an injured person. The less imminent dangers, they're imminent means if I don't move them, this is going to happen. If I don't move them, they will catch on fire. If I don't move them, there will be more harm or more damage to them. So that's when you're allowed to move them. Other than that, don't move them. Stop heavy bleeding. Probably won't get nothing about that. No question about that. But trick question. Keep the injured person warm. So if you go back to watching movies and seeing situations, you always see them take that silver blanket and cover them up. So if that visual helps you remember to keep them warm, that's going to be a question on there. They're going to keep the injured person cool, keep the injured person warm, keep the injured person wet, whatever the question will be. Keep the injured person warm. Okay, it's going to help prevent strike. Unless they're in the middle of a heat stroke or it's 100 degrees outside and the excessive heat's what's causing the problem. Don't get confused. Generally speaking, keep the person warm. So we got protect the area with your vehicle, Protect the area by moving out of the way. Notify the authorities. Step 2. Step 3, care for the injured. They're going to give you trick questions. In what order? Protect the area first. Notify authorities. On the test, it makes you think in such a way where they make you think that you should call authorities first. No, that's not the first thing. First thing is protect the area. Then you call the authorities. Then you help the injured. Protect the area. So if the answer A, B, C, or D, what's the first thing you do? If it doesn't start with protect the area, it's going to be wrong. So protect the area is the first thing you're going to do. So protect the area. Read that. Notify authorities. Step 2. Step 3, care for the injured. You see me highlighting it there? It's going to be on your test, guaranteed. 2.21, that's on page 2-40. And it's right here. You can see it on your screen here. That's where we're at. And it's going to match up to any driver's manual you pick up from your DMVs. Truck fires can cause damage and injury. Learn the causes of fires and how to prevent them. Know what to do to extinguish fires. Causes of fires. The following are some causes of vehicle fires. After accidents, spilled fuel, improper use of flares. They cause fires. Tires, underinflated tires, and duals that touch. That's part of our pre-trip inspection too. When we're checking our duals, make sure the tires aren't touching, because that friction can rubber. It's going to catch on fire if you give enough friction to it. Electrical system, short circuits due to damaged insulation, loose connections. If you've been in a commercial vehicle for more than 10 minutes, you're going to find out real quick these things have tremendous electrical connection issues. They are such a problem. The truck's always vibrating, things are coming loose. You'll have computer issues, wires coming loose. That's why we do pre-trips, to make sure we keep them all tied up. Fuel, driver smoking, improper fueling, loose fuel connections, cargo, flammable cargo, improperly sealed or loaded cargo, poor ventilation. So these are some of the causes of fires. 3 elements to a fire. You have to have fuel, something to burn. You have to have oxygen. And you have to have an igniter, something to cause it. You take one of those 3 things away, you don't have a fire. So spark, fuel, oxygen, right? Fuel, any of those. You take one of them away, you don't have a fire. That's why these fire extinguishers that we have really do a good job of eliminating some of that, so we can choke out the oxygen or smother it out to where it can't burn. Fire prevention, 2.21.2. Fire prevention. Pay attention to the following. Pre-trip inspection. Make a complete inspection of the electrical, fuel, and exhaust system, tires, and cargo. Be sure to check that the fire extinguisher is charged. You probably see that one. That's part of your pre-trip. Fully charged fire extinguisher. En route inspection. Check the tires, wheels, and truck body for signs of heat whenever you're stopped during a trip. So you stop, use the restroom, you stop to get a cup of coffee, do a quick walk around. Get in the habit of that. Things you want to check. Underneath the vehicle for dripping fluids. Walk past the side of your tire, putting your hands over, not touch them, you don't have to touch them, but see if you feel heat radiating from the hubs or the tires. Pre-trip inspection is your best bet to catch some of these things. Follow safe procedures. Follow correct safety procedures for fuel in the vehicle. Using brakes. Handling flares and other activities can cause a fire. I don't like the flares myself. I know some vehicles have the road flares they use for warning devices. I've used the red reflective triangles my entire driving career. They're easy to see. They're easy to maintain. They're not going to run out of flare. They're not going to run out of fuel to burn and warn people. So I like the red reflective triangles. Let's move on down to section 2.21.3, firefighting. So let's go back to the comment I made earlier. You're not a doctor, so don't do more harm than good. I'm not a firefighter. I have basic knowledge of what's in my capabilities, so that applies to this too. Don't put your life in danger. Don't put other people's lives in danger. Knowing how to fight fires is important. Drivers who did not know how to respond have made fires worse. Know how the fire extinguisher works. Study the instructions printed on the extinguisher before you need it. Here are some procedures to follow in case of a fire. Your vehicle's on fire. Pull off the road. The first stop is get the vehicle off the road and stop. In doing so, park in an open area, away from buildings, trees, brush, other vehicles, anything that might catch fire. You don't want to spread it. Again, we're protecting the area, right? Don't pull into a service station. Don't pull into a fuel station. Notify emergency services of your problem and your location. So again, emergency situation, protect the area. Notify authorities. Care for the injured, right? So they may not be injured yet, but we can still protect the area. Stay upwind or downwind, away from the smoke. If the smoke's going that way, you go to the other side. Warn other drivers and pedestrians and people around you to stay away from it. We're going to get into types of cargo and where you should keep your bill of lading and your emergency response guides and all that. But yeah, we don't want to make matters worse. Keep the fire from spreading. Before we're trying to put out the fire, make sure the fire doesn't spread any further. Turn your engine off. Don't open the hood if you can avoid it. Shoot foam through louvers, radiator, or from the vehicle's underside, right? You open it up, you're just adding more oxygen to it. While we say it takes for a fire, it takes fuel, spark, ignition, and oxygen. If you open it up, you're giving the fire more oxygen to burn. So don't open that up if you can avoid it. Extinguish the fire. Here's some rules for putting out the fire. When using a fire extinguisher, stay as far away from the fire as possible. Aim at the source or its base of the fire, not up in the flames. And you only have one fire extinguisher. If that doesn't do it and it continues to burn, you're not a firefighter. Okay, you called the authorities. Get away from the vehicle. Stay out of the smoke inhalation area. Protect the area. Hopefully you pull over somewhere where you're not going to catch something else on fire and make things worse. It's not worth your life. It's not worth other people's lives. So keep that in mind. Use the right fire extinguisher. Figures 2.20 and 2.21 detail the type of fire extinguisher you may use by class of fire. The BC type of fire extinguisher is designed to work on electrical fires and burning liquids. BC type for electrical and burning liquids. The ABC type is designed to work on burning wood, paper, or cloth. Water can be used on wood, paper, or cloth. Do not use water on electrical fire. Water can be used on those types of fires. It can cause you a shock if you put it on electrical, and don't put it on gasoline. It's going to cause it to spread. A burning tire must be cooled. Lots of water may be required. So that's going to be a little bit of a trick question on your test. Water can be used on a tire fire. Water can be used on a tire fire. If you're not sure what to use, especially on a hazardous materials fire, wait for firefighters. Position yourself upwind. Let the wind carry the extinguisher to the fire. Continue until whatever is burning has been cooled. Absence of smoke or flame does not mean the fire cannot restart. So if you want to go into a little bit of detail, they're not going to ask too many questions about that. The most common question I've seen is don't put water on electrical fires, but you can use water on a tire fire. So if you can remember that, you're in pretty good shape. I don't believe they're going to ask you the different types of fire extinguishers. If they do, you can come back and study that if you're worried about it. BC is good for electrical and burning liquids. ABC is good for wood, paper, cloth, and water can be used on tires. So let's go over subsections 220 and 221, and we're going to test our knowledge. And we may go through this one because we're only at 15 minutes for this one, 16 minutes, 17 minutes for this one. We may go through this one to the next one. Just trying to get through it and reduce the amount of subjects we're going to have to cover here, but just general knowledge, we're getting close to the end of it. What are some things you can do at an accident scene to prevent another accident? What's the first thing you're going to do? Protect the area. The second thing you're going to do is notify the authorities. The next thing you're going to do is care for the injured. Don't attempt to move someone unless absolutely necessary, meaning they're going to catch on fire, it's imminent, or they're going to get hurt some other way that's going to be imminent if you don't move them. That's the only two times you move them. Keep them warm. Keep them warm. Care for the injured, right? Keep them warm. Stop the bleeding, slow the bleeding with direct pressure, hard pressure. So you want to slow that bleeding until a professional can get there and take care of them. Name the 2 causes of tire fires. Name 2 causes. There's more than friction, like tires rubbing together can cause fires, underinflated tires, electrical fires, cargo fires, smoking or open flames around fuels. There's a bunch of different ways, so we name more than 2. Oh, I guess on this new test, I guess we are going to ask about the different classes. What kinds of fires is a BC extinguisher not? See, trick question. Right here, we know what that's good for, but it's asking what's not good for. All right? So let's go back and see what BC was good for. So BC is a type of fire extinguisher designed to work on electrical fires and burning liquids. And ABC is designed to work on burning wood, paper, or cloth. So come here, BC, regular dry chemical. B or C, dry chemical. B or C, carbon dioxide. These are the types of fire extinguishers. So I'm not sure what it's asking here. What kinds of fires is a BC extinguisher not good for? I'm guessing wood, paper, because it says it is good for electrical and oil stuff, right? Burning liquid. So if it's good for that, it must not be good for the other one. If I'm wrong about that, you guys will let me know. When using your extinguisher, should you get as close as possible to the fire? No, because I don't want to catch on fire. I'll stay as far away from possible and still be able to extinguish it. Keep a distance. Need some causes of vehicle fires. We talked about that. So it's asking the same type of question. Name 2 causes of fires: electrical, fuel, friction. 2 types of vehicle fires. We talked about the belts on your engine, the drive belts and stuff. Those can cause friction and catching on fire. Those belts are usually rubber. Electrical fires, those are 2 types or causes: fire and fuel. They'll give you an A, B, C, D section there. It might be all the above whenever you give it. So you just make sure you read it all and go from there on your test. So now we're moving into section 2.22. Alcohol, other drugs, and driving. We talked about that a little bit at the beginning of this series, drugs and alcohol. This is going to ask questions about blood alcohol concentration, things of that nature. That's going, you may need a little bit more detail and more information about. Drinking and driving is never good, right? Don't do it. We can talk about this whole section if we want to, but don't drink and drive. Don't use drugs and drive. How alcohol works. This is the question. This is where they're going to ask some questions about. So alcohol goes directly in the bloodstream and is carried to the brain. After passing through the brain, small percentages are removed in urine, perspiration, and breathing, while the rest is carried to the liver. The liver can only process 1/3 an ounce of alcohol per hour, which is considerably less than the alcohol in a standard drink. This is a fixed rate. So only time, not black coffee or a cold shower, will sober you up. If you have drinks faster than your body can get rid of them, you will have more alcohol in your body and your driving will be more affected. The blood alcohol concentration, the BAC. Remember this acronym, the BAC, these initials. Commonly measure the amount of alcohol in your body. See figure 2.22, which is here, and you can see the figure. A heavier person can tolerate more alcohol than a smaller person. What determines blood alcohol concentration? Blood alcohol concentration is determined by the amount of alcohol you drink. The more alcohol means higher BAC. How fast you drink, faster drinking means higher BAC, and your weight. So BAC is determined by weight. This might be the question you're going to ask. The small person doesn't have to drink as much to reach the same BAC, blood alcohol concentration. If I'm 200 pounds and you're 150 pounds, we drink the same amount of alcohol, your BAC is going to be higher than mine. Alcohol in the brain. Alcohol affects more and more of the brain. As the BAC builds up, the first part of the brain effectively controls judgment and self-control. One of the bad things about this, it can keep drinkers from knowing they are getting drunk. And of course, good judgment and self-control are absolutely necessary for safe driving. You can read over this, but just know that the bigger you are or smaller, your weight determines your BAC a little bit. The amount you drink, how fast you drink, those situations. But you're bigger, your BAC is not going to be as high as it is going to be for a smaller person. So the biggest, we're not going to go into this. You guys, you're well aware of alcohol. This ain't the first time that you've heard about alcohol, but the BAC is what I want you to understand. Now, here's a trick question too. Not trick question, but it's something they're going to focus on a little bit. All the following drinks contain the same amount of alcohol. When you're thinking about this, don't think you're pouring the same amount of alcohol. It's the way these alcohols, it's in ounces, right? So a 12-ounce glass of beer, a 5% beer, right? A 12-ounce glass of 5% beer is equal to a 5-ounce glass of 12% wine. So all the following drinks contain the same amount of alcohol. A 12-ounce glass of 5% beer and a 5-ounce glass of 12% wine contain the same amount of alcohol. A 1.5 shot of 80 proof liquor, so whiskey, vodka, all that, they all have the same alcohol. Even though whiskey is drank like this in ounces, beer is drank by the glass, and wine is drank by the wine glass. They're all going to have the same effect. They say that. So if you drink 3 shots of whiskey at 80 proof, that's 4.5 ounces, right? So that's like having 4.5 beers, 3 beers, even though they're small glasses. So it's concentrated, right? It's the same amount of alcohol, even though they come in different serving sizes. Know what you're drinking. As BAC continues to build up, muscle control, vision, and coordination are affected. More and more effects on driving may include you can't stay in the lines, jerky, falling asleep. You have your response time, your reaction time. So before you drink and drive, before you go drinking, make sure you have a plan before you have the first drink. So if I know I'm going out to steakhouse down the road, I'm going to ask my wife if she'll drive, because that determines whether or not I'm going to be able to have a drink or not. If she don't want to drive, I'm not going to make her, but I'm not drinking. Because once I have that first drink, my decision-making ability is impaired. After 3 beers, I may feel fine. Oh, I'm going to risk it. I'm going to do it. My decision-making ability is messed up. Make that decision before you have the first drink. So have a plan for it. Don't drink and drive. You're professional drivers now with getting your CDL, so act like a professional. We talked about the difference between having a permit and a non-CDL. Most places, I can have a BAC of 0.08, and that is driving under influence. If I have a CDL, that number changes to 0.04%. This is important information to know because it's going to be asked on your test. For CDL holders, 0.04 is a DUI. What if I have a 0.02? That's not 0.04, so I'm not getting a DUI, but it is a detectable amount. So even though I'm not going to get a DUI, I will be put out of service for having any detectable amount. 0.01, it's detectable. All right, so they would put me out of service for at least 10 hours, maybe longer, until they come back and verify that it was out of my system and I've had enough rest. I wouldn't get a DUI, but I'm going to get in trouble because I have the detectable amount of alcohol in my system. I'm going to be put out of service. I have to inform my boss. My boss is going to fire me, be looking for a new job. Then my boss is going to tell my next employer why he fired me or she fired me. It's serious business when you're dealing with drugs and alcohol. Other drugs besides alcohol, other legal and illegal drugs are being used more often. Laws prohibit possession or use of many drugs while on duty. They prohibit being under the influence of any controlled substance, amphetamines, narcotics, or any other substance which can make you the unsafe driver. This could include a variety of prescription and over-the-counter drugs, cold medicines, over-the-counter. I didn't get a prescription, but if I take NyQuil, with alcohol that's got alcohol and it can make me drowsy and I'm trying to drive, I can get a DUI for that. I'm not fit to drive. I could be driving under the influence. Possession and use of a drug given to a driver by a doctor is permitted if the doctor informs the driver that it will not affect safe driving ability. So you really want that, a letter or on your medication that you're taking, the doctor puts that on there because you have a CDL and it needs to be on there. Pay attention to the warning labels for legitimate drugs and medicines and to a doctor's orders regardless of possible effects. Stay away from illegal drugs. Don't use any drug that hides fatigue. The only cure for fatigue is rest. So there's no replacement for sleep but sleep. Alcohol can make the effects of other drugs much worse. The safest rule is do not mix drugs with driving at all. Use of drugs can lead to traffic crashes. Yeah, you guys know all this. It's going to cause a lot of problems. Injuries, you can kill somebody, you can hurt somebody, you can damage equipment, cost you your career. So the best bet is just don't do it. 2.23, staying alert and fit to drive. Driving a vehicle for long hours is tiring. Even the best of drivers will become less alert. However, there are things that good drivers can do to stay alert and safe. 2.23.1, be ready to drive. Get enough sleep. All right. Sleep is not like money. You can't save it up ahead of time and you can't borrow it. But just as with money, you can't go into debt with it. You heard me mention that in a previous subject about sleep debt. So if you don't sleep enough, you owe more sleep to yourself. This debt can only be paid by sleeping. You can't overcome it with willpower, and it won't go away by itself. The average person needs 7 to 8 hours of sleep every 24 hours. Leaving on a long trip when you're already tired is dangerous. If you don't have a long trip scheduled, make sure that you get enough sleep before you go. If you do have a long trip scheduled, make sure you get enough sleep. That's not just CDL. That goes for your cars too. If you're taking a trip to grandma's house and she lives in a different state and it's going to take you 17 hours to get there, I wouldn't try to drive it all at once. Be safe. Be rested. Exercise regularly. Eat healthy. Avoid medications. Visit your doctors. Keep cool. If you're hot and you're driving, it's going to make you more tired. So keep cool. Take breaks. Recognize the danger signs of drowsy driving. I bet you guys could go over this without me reading this. So if you want to read it, go back and read it yourself. But you know when you're tired, you know what the symptoms look like. When you do become sleepy, don't try to push on. There's no replacement for sleep but sleep. Take you a nap, get you some rest. It'll help. Stop the sleep when your body needs it. Avoid the caffeines, avoid the drugs, avoid all the pet pills, all these things these energy drinks, avoid them. It's going to give you a short burst of energy, but it's also going to give you the crash that's going to make you more tired. And the crash usually lasts longer than the way you feel up and ready to drive. Here's a tricky one, and you got to be fit to drive. So if you look at 2.23.4, illness, okay? Once in a while, you may become so ill that you cannot operate a motor vehicle safely. If this happens to you, you must not drive. However, in case of emergency, you may drive to the nearest place where you can safely stop. If you get inspected and you're sick, you'll have signs, just reasonable suspicion that you may be sick. You're not fit to drive, you can be put out of service for it. The DOT officer has the authority. You don't look fit to drive. I just saw you throwing up on the side of the road. You look like you have a fever. I'm not a doctor, but you don't look fit to drive. We'd better err on the side of caution, and they'll put you out of service. And again, that service order is an official order put from the police. You can't violate a service order. We talked about it in the very first part of this general knowledge that we started with. So yeah, you can't violate it out of service. Now we're talking about 2.24, hazardous material rules for all commercial drivers. This one's going to a little caveat, a little trick question in there for you. So let me read through it. I'm going to tell you how they're going to ask it for you. It's not going to confuse you, but it's going to be hard. You may not remember it, so I want you to take a little extra time to remember what I'm going to tell you. All drivers should know something about hazardous materials. You should be able to recognize hazardous cargo. You must know whether or not you can haul it without having a hazardous material endorsement on your CDL. Wait a minute. Merle, didn't you say hazardous material required an endorsement, a hazmat endorsement? Not all. It comes down to whether or not the vehicle needs to be placarded. If the vehicle is required to have placards, the placards we talked about on all four sides, dangerous. If it requires placards, yes, you have to have a hazardous material endorsement. Some hazardous material does not require placards. Maybe you don't have enough quantity. Maybe it's exempt. Forklift batteries, for example. That seems pretty hazardous, seems pretty corrosive, but the way they're packaged and the way they're encased, you can carry a truckload of forklift batteries and not have to have a hazardous endorsement on your CDL. So if it requires placards, yes, you have to have an endorsement. The key word is the placards. Understand what they are. They're the diamond shape. They're about 10 3/4. They're on all four sides of the vehicle. If the vehicle shipping paper says it requires placards, you have to have the endorsement. If you're not sure, call your dispatcher, call your safety director, pull out your hazardous material guidelines, Google it, AI, whatever you have to do to find out. You should be able to identify. If you see a placard on a packaging somewhere, if it's in a tote and it looks like chemicals, if it's a big truckload of fireworks, I can tell what that is. You got to be able to identify it. And usually it's going to be listed on your bill of lading. The shipper has a responsibility to inform you of that. And they're responsible for giving you placards. Get the placards, put them on your trucks. If not, you get your placards. A lot of trucks have the flip out placards. That's hazardous material. Get into hazardous material endorsement. That's at a later time. The different classes you have 1 through 9: explosive, gases, flammable solids, oxidizers, poisons, radioactive, corrosive, miscellaneous, hazardous material, ORMD, which is other regulated materials, domestic. What would that be? Let's say you got acetone, fingernail polish remover. Okay? But it's packaged in individual bottles ready to put on the shelf in cartons. So that would be ORMD, right? It's packaged like that. But it depends on how much you have, and you'd have to go back and look at your hazardous material books to see how much quantity, usually 1,000 gallons in one or something like that, or weight. Then it may require placards for that. Combustible liquids. So those are the types. What are the rules? You must follow the rules about transporting hazardous material. The intent of the rules is to contain the product. Make sure it doesn't leak out. Communicate the risk. That's those placards that we were talking about. Contain the product, communicate the risk, and ensure safe drivers and equipment. Remember this. Contain the product, communicate the risk, ensure safe drivers and equipment. Contain the product. Many hazardous products can injure, kill, and cut, blah, blah, blah. You can read that over that. Communicate the risk. That's the documentation. That's the packaging. That's the placards, stuff that goes along with it. So here's what we're going to talk about. This will be on your test. So after an accident or hazardous material spill or leak, you may be injured and unable to communicate the hazards of the materials you are transporting. Firefighters and police can prevent or reduce the amount of damage or injury at the scene if they know what hazardous materials are being transported. Your life, the lives of others, may depend on quickly locating the hazardous materials shipping papers. For that reason, you must identify shipping papers related to hazardous material, or keep them on top of other shipping papers. You must also keep shipping papers. This is going to be on the test. In a pouch on the driver's door or in clear view within reach while driving, or on the driver's seat when outside of the vehicle. Put them in the door pocket. They're the very first ones. When the firefighter comes, they know where to find them. They open the door, they grab it out of the pouch. It's the very first document is the hazardous material. Time is of essence, right? You're unconscious. So they need to know what they're fighting. They need to know how to combat this hazardous material. They need to know what they're fighting. They need to know how to put it out. They know it could be something that can't mix with water. So they need to know what it is. Where do you keep those documents? In the door pouch, or if you're driving, where you can reach it. In clear view, right? Within reach. And if you're outside of the vehicle, door pocket or on the driver's seats. That way they open the door, they can grab that sucker. So they can fight that hazardous material fire quickly and safely. So 2.243. This is important back here. Where do you keep it at? You keep it in the door pouch or on the driver's seat or within reach. Remember that, because it's going to be a question on your test. Less of regulated products. Placards, they use this to warn others of hazardous material. If you look down here to the right, remember I was talking about the 10 3/4 inch diamond shaped placards? This is a placard. 9 different categories. Some can be mixed with others, some can't. But this is not a hazardous material class. This is just knowing that you need to know what hazardous materials are and what you can and can't do with them. If the vehicle is placarded and you do not have a hazmat endorsement on your license, you cannot drive it. If it does not have to be placarded, you can drive it. But the same safety precautions still apply. You still have to put the pouch on the driver's door and clear view of reach while you're driving, or on the driver's seat when outside of the vehicle. So that still has to happen. Placards are used to warn others. So the placards, that's what we're doing here with these signs that we put on the side of the vehicles. They got to be on all 4 sides: front, back, and left of the vehicle. You can be on both sides of the trailer, the rear of the trailer, and the front of the trailer, or on the front of the tractor that covers all 4 sides, okay? So it needs to be on all 4 sides. No matter what direction you're approached from, they can see these placards. Identification numbers are a 4-digit code used by first responders. The identification number will be preceded by the letters NA or UN. The US DOT Emergency Response Guidebook lists the chemicals and identification numbers. So just about anybody you're going to go to work for is going to give you a FMCSR handbook, the Federal Motor Carrier Safety Regulation Handbook. So if you ever got questions about regulations, you can buy them at the truck stop. You can download it on your Play Store and your apps on your phone. The same thing with the ERG, the Emergency Response Guidebook. In case of emergency, this chemical, what do I do? And it's in there. So it's important to know. And usually we want to keep those guidebooks, that emergency response guidebook, with the pouch with your hazardous material papers. That's a good rule of thumb. That way everything's together, because when you need it, you don't need to be looking for it. Not all vehicles carrying hazardous material need to have placards. The rules about placards are given in Section 9 of this manual. We're not in Section 9, are we? That's the hazardous material side. We'll get into that later. If you want to go ahead and read into it, go ahead and read into it. You can drive a vehicle that carries hazardous material if it does not require placards. This will be one of the bigger questions. You may be asked it more than one time in a different way. If it requires placards, you cannot. If it requires placards, you cannot drive it unless you have the hazardous materials endorsement. So you can see figure 2.25, these are your placards. If it's placarded, you have to have a endorsement. If it's not placarded, you don't have to have the endorsement. A tank endorsement is required for any commercial vehicle that is designed to transport a liquid or gaseous material in a tank or tanks having an individual rated capacity of more than 119 gallons and an aggregate capacity of 1,000. So when we were talking about endorsements earlier on, way earlier on, we was talking about, of course we know what a tank vehicle is, but what about these containers that hold liquid? So if I have, these are 119 gallon capacity, they're square totes, but I have them loaded on a flatbed. A flatbed isn't a tanker, but I have to have a tank endorsement if I have enough of these on there to get to that magic number of 1,000. Right? So that is important. You do have to have a tank endorsement if you're carrying over 1,000 gallons, even if it's on a flatbed, even if it's in those totes, because now it behaves like a tank vehicle. You must also know what you can load together. Again, go to Section 9. Subsections 2.2, 2.22, 2.23, and 2.24. Let's test your knowledge. Let's see how well I did. See if I said enough and covered the things that need to be covered. If I didn't, that gives me an opportunity to talk about those now, so we haven't missed anything. Common medicines for colds can make you sleepy. True or false? That's question number 1. That is true, right? Common cold medicines will make you sleepy. What should you do if you become sleepy while driving? Rest, take a nap, sleep, exercise will help, right? What don't do? caffeine, excessive caffeine, energy drinks, drugs to keep you awake. It's masking the real problem, the root cause of you being tired. Coffee and a little fresh air will help a drinker sober up. No, the only way to deplete alcohol out of your system is time. Time. And blood alcohol concentration is determined by how much you drink and how much you weigh. The smaller you are, the more effect it's going to have on your body and the more alcohol concentration you're going to have. I'm not saying just because you're 300 pounds you can go pound them down. No, it may take you longer to get that threshold of 0.04 for a CDL driver to get a DUI, but it doesn't mean go out there and abuse it and become intoxicated. So coffee and a little fresh air will help a drinker sober up. That is false. Only time's going to do that. What is a hazardous material placard? We just said that. It's right here. It's used to warn others of hazardous materials. It's a visual diamond-shaped placard. You put them on all four sides of your vehicle. Why are placards used? To communicate the risk. Right? You have to communicate the risk to others. Go back and read that. We just went over that. What is sleep debt? That's when your body's not getting the required amount of sleep. And over time, you owe your body to get that night's rest. For example, if it takes me 8 hours for my body to be rested, my body knows what it needs. It needs 8 hours. And I'm continuously giving it 6 hours, 6 hours, 6 hours. The more I do that, the more I'm in debt. I can't borrow time. The only way to fix sleep debt is get the required amount of sleep. So if I'm required 8, even if I've got 6 or 7 hours of sleep all week, and the first time I get my 8 hours, I'm out of debt. I don't have to double up. I don't have to make up those hours. What are dangerous signals of being drowsy driving? I don't know. Your eyes starting to close slowly, heavy eyelids, yawning. You go back and read it. You know what being tired looks like, and you'll be able to tell that by the questions. All right, we're going to stop there. That's going to be almost the end of general knowledge, but we are going to put in section 3, transporting cargo safely, to wrap this up, and that will get us to our next sections, which are going to be air brakes and combination. But this is going to be our general knowledge when we finish up this transporting cargo safely. Thank you for watching, and hopefully we'll come back and finish this one up. And I hope this really helps you guys. This is the same style of class, and I usually do it in a classroom format. The same things I'll be saying to you is what I say in a classroom. I don't expect you to go through here and watch them all at one time, because it's very hard to retain things when you do that. Watch them one section at a time. If you have to watch a section more than once, if you have to pause and rewind and go back, if you want to go back and read it yourself too, take the time and read it. It's right there on the screen. Even if you don't have the book with you, the manual with you, this is the same book that you're going to have in just about every state out there. We'll see you in section 3, and it's going to be transporting cargo safely.